Okay. I haven't talked about a whole lot about the base that I'm going to be using for the Blue House piece, because it's going to be a vertical piece like this. And you can see that I've got some painted paper in here. This is all prepped and ready to go. 5 layers of corrugated cardboard with a layer of carton board on one side and the other side. And you can see I've wrapped everything around, and everything has been sealed with a varnish. So this is that matte varnish. It's really hard to describe the dimensionality with this. You've got to be here to see it. It's really subtle and I like it. But I really haven't talked much about how I add the backs to these pieces. And you can see here I've got a hanger, I've got some brown paper, I've got this little signature place here, and this piece is, I still haven't written the name in on it, but the brown paper is recycled grocery store bags. And I do some things to it before I adhere it to the back of a piece. And you can see here I've got a grocery bag. We have our groceries delivered because we are old, and it's kind of a hump to get everything here. So especially when it comes to dairy products, etc., I don't want to hump it in the sun. So I process the not trash bags, the garbage bags. Garbage bags, not the garbage bags, the brown paper bags. I'll cut them up, and I keep them in rolls, and I use them for all kinds of different things. Sometimes I'm making a larger pattern out of them. Sometimes it's used for making a mess on, being a drop cloth. And a lot of times it's used for backing and bookmaking. So I wanted to show you how I go about putting these together. And you can see I've got a piece here. And I'm basically just going to line this up and give it a little bit of space. I'm not even going to measure. I'm just going to use my knife to cut that. This piece will then just be rolled back up. And then do the same thing here, and then this can go straight into recycling. Okay, so now I have a piece that's a little bit bigger. Now, I know this may not be like super exciting. It's just something that I do to the backs of my work, and this also extends to the papers that I use. Like, this is my book cover, and you can see, if I can get it, there are some, I also use a lot of tape, there are some subtle lines, they're fold lines in here. Now, you may or may not know this about me. Oops, that fell over. I did a lot of origami as a kid, lots of origami. So for me, there's a little bit of a fascination with these kinds of lines that are already pre-made. So I first decide which side's going to be the front and which is going to be the back. This, I think, is going to be the front. So one of the first things I do, and I've got my bone folder here, because I learned early on, don't use your nails to do that, because you're just going to... I once rubbed through a nail, and that's really painful. What I do is I actually sit down and spend a couple of minutes working on lines. Now you can see here, as I'm kind of flipping this around, I'm just kind of going through and redoing some of these lines, meaning I'm just pressing them and making them fresher. Sometimes I do come in with my fingernails and do this. And then once that's done, I start adding my own lines. And by own lines, what do you mean? What you're probably thinking, what are you talking about? Well, I come in and I start making my own lines, meaning now you can see I have a very distinct line here. And when you look at it, you can see that the way the paper has been, like, I guess, disturbed. There's now you can feel it. Okay, and I continue doing this. Now, some of the things I do in here are very decidedly origami, in that I will stop at certain places and then give it a different fold. Some of these are like the beginnings of squash blossoms. I'm trying to get this up here. So you can see I'm going through and folding the paper differently. Now, do I know what it's gonna look like? No, I have absolutely no idea. I kind of have an idea. Okay, here, and you can see here, I'm gonna just fold up. And if you've done enough origami, you kind of know what I'm talking about. So then what I start getting are very interesting patterns and designs within the piece. And I just basically keep flipping things around until I decide that I have enough. And I kind of like let the paper do what the paper's gonna do. So like you saw me put my finger there and it stopped. I'm like, okay. So I think I'll put another one there. And I come back in, and now I have this kind of triangle piece there. So I'll do that all over the piece of paper. And then when it's time for it to be attached, I simply come in and do some measurements to see. I usually come in about 5 millimeters from the edge, and then I just use a slightly watered tacky glue, paint that on, press it down, and then burnish it. When I say burnish it, I use my bone folder to do that. Burnishing is just, you can do it with a variety of different types of tools that are called burnishers, but that's how I do this. Why do I do it? Knowing that it's something that no one is ever really going to see, because I like to do it. I've been working a lot on the portfolio for my website, putting up work. In fact, I think my husband's looking at it right now. And I found myself typing in things like, well, why do you make dolls with more than one head? I don't know, because I want to. That's pretty much it, because I wanna. So that is how I put these together. And in this unique piece, I'm going to I had to stop and think about it. This needs to be done, which means I've already finished all of this. I put the varnish on that I want. The varnish is on this side, the sealant's on here, the varnish is on this side. So now I can go ahead and attach this. And what I'll do is I'll have everything done with the exception of actually screwing in and putting these pieces in. So these, the nameplate and everything will be there, but this piece will not go on until it's to the point where it is almost completely finished. Because I'm going to have to do construction things on this, meaning when I say construction, which means I'm going to be, oops, didn't mean for that to fall over, meaning that there's going to be a portion carved out of this in some angle. And then I can mount the house into this piece. And you can see, let me grab the house. It's sitting over here drying. And you can see I've chosen, originally I thought I wanted it to go this way. And I'm now thinking that if I can get this to come up a little further, move that over, see if I can, that I think I'm going to want to mount it this way with a diagonal. And that means this piece here, I'm going to have to measure and then cut a trough with a 45-degree angle in it so that this will stay mounted in this. Now, this means too that I'm going to have to change. Part of me thinks that if I do it if I do it this way, I'll have greater support, which also means if I need to on these back sides, I've been thinking about this, I could also add a support here or add other supports as needed. So I'm kind of down to, you know, which way am I going to go with the original, which was this, or am I going to change it to something more like this? Because each of these have kind of a different connotation of emerging, being thrown into, emerging, being thrown into, being swallowed, being enveloped, those sorts of things. So yeah, I think about some kind of strange things while I'm working. And then on top of that, how is that going to change how the piece is seen from the side or the other ways? And then some people will say, well, why don't you just glue it straight to the base? And it's like, well, I could do that. That is definitely a possibility that I'm not ruling out. I may have to, this may be something that is glued into the base and then hung vertically, because that would give enough structure to hold everything in. And again, I may sink it into the base. I don't know. And this video is getting too long for me to be thinking about those things. So as I bring this down a little lower so I can find the button, I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. What are your thoughts about this? Should it be mounted as a flat piece this way, or this way, or this way? Because again, part of me is kind of leaning this way, but now I'm looking at it this way. And then there's also the part of me that's saying, you know what? You can do another version of this. and that part of me kind of goes, huh, I kind of like that too. Anyway, thank you, patrons, and I will see you in the next video.